Welcome everyone back to weekly weather updates, and in today's video we can have a look at the latest from the live radar for the weather warnings, as we have got various weather warnings issued over the next few days, including Christmas Eve and Christmas Day, as we are going to see relatively unsettled, if not stormy weather, especially further northwards. We do have wind warnings, rain warnings, and over the next 24 to 48 hours, even some snow warnings issued, as we are seeing some transient snow across parts of northern and eastern Scotland at the moment. So yes, it's not going to be cold and wintry like we thought perhaps a week or two ago through this Christmas period, but it does look like it is still going to be disruptive regardless, with more in the way of rain and wind. Now we'll look at that in detail on the latest UKV, look at the precipitation and the temperature, and of course wind gusts over the next 5 days as we get to just beyond Boxing Day now. And then we'll have a look at the longer range, look at the GFS, GM, Eastern WF and the ensembles, because we saw in yesterday's video, if you have got some hope for something a bit colder by the end of the year or start of the new year, then the models are definitely looking like the conditions to end the year, maybe the last couple of days into the first full week of January, could be turning a little bit colder. Nothing too crazy at this stage, but definitely looking below average, with the risk of snow, especially further northwards, and potential for more of a severe or more prolonged colder spell into January if the sort of tentative signs of blocking patterns does come off. But of course, as I said in yesterday's video, not really getting the hopes up, but simply because of the poor performance from the models earlier this month. So yeah, we'll be very sceptical of what they're producing beyond day 7 for the time being. So do remember, if you enjoy my videos, make sure you like and subscribe, and remember to follow me on Twitter as well, the link's in the description. Now if you start on the live radar, you can see it is very unsettled in the north at the moment. We've got some showers for Wales, North England, even stretching into East England here, but really nothing too significant. Further northwards though, we do have a weather front that is moving in. A colder pool of air has moved in for northern and eastern Scotland over the past day or so, and it means as this weather front is moving in, pushing that cold air away, we are seeing some quite heavy transient snowfall at the moment, mainly over the higher ground, but right on the leading edge at the moment, we're even seeing it to low-lying areas for the far north and east of Scotland. Here, we do have a snow warning issued. Now, if you look at the temperatures, you can see it is very varied. The south, 12, 13, maybe even a 14 degree through this afternoon, still holding pretty high overnight, maybe even double digits for some. Said Scotland though, much of northern eastern Scotland towards freezing point. Of course, gradually climbing as the weather front does bring milder air in, but perhaps even by tomorrow morning, still cold and still snowing in some areas, especially over the higher ground, as that weather front slowly makes progress northwards and eastwards. Now, if you look at the weather warnings, we have got snow and ice warnings issued for the Shetland Islands and for northern and eastern Scotland here until midday tomorrow, and actually only starting at 9 p.m. tonight. So the snow's already falling, but the warning actually only starts in a couple of hours' time. Probably because the temperatures are going to drop as the night goes on. So as this weather front has arrived, perhaps that snow level could drop, the freezing level could drop for a couple of hours through this evening before slowly rising through the morning. You can see here that through Friday night, it is going to be snowing before turning to rain during Saturday. 200 metres initially, but through the night the snow is likely to fall to low-lying areas, so freezing level dropping through the night, but then the cold air does get replaced from the southwest, so things will be turning milder, especially for low-lying areas. We could see low-lying areas seeing 2 to 5 centimetres of snow, with maybe even accumulations of 10 to 15 centimetres over the highest ground, but as said, mostly turning to rain by tomorrow, even for relatively high ground, as a real quite mild air mass moves in. Medium likelihood, lower end of the impact matrix, and then we've got this warning for snow and ice across the Shetland Islands, but more for snow showers, expiring at 10 a.m. tomorrow again for a few centimetres of snow, and we've had this in force for a couple of days now. If we look at Saturday, we've still got the snow and ice warnings, but then we've got rain warnings coming into force as that milder, but also much more unsettled air does move in. So from midnight tonight until almost midnight tomorrow, we see heavy rain accompanied by strong winds for western Scotland. Some of these areas are seeing snow tonight, and then going to see 20 to 50 millimetre rain tomorrow night. So massively varied conditions as this milder air moves in, but you see a slow-moving weather front is expected to lead to a period of heavy rain developing this weekend. Now, it is, of course, linked to the same area of low pressure, but as this warm front moves in, displace that cold air away, and then the rainfall just keeps coming down. So I said snow tonight, and that all melts through tomorrow, and then turns to heavy rain through much of tomorrow. 80 to 100 millimetres could be possible over some of the higher ground. Now, further southwards, we've got a rain warning issued for much of northern Wales here, especially over Snowdonia. You can see here 10 p.m. tomorrow until 6 p.m. on Sunday. So really for tomorrow night in towards Sunday. Again, 20 to 40 millimetres of rain, maybe 60 to 80 millimetres. So that leads into Christmas Eve. We still have that rain warning, and then we've got multiple wind warnings. We've got a wind warning issued for northern and eastern England, including parts of the East Midlands here, for strong, very gusty winds. May cause some travel disruption from 8 a.m. until 10 p.m. Again, 40 to 50 miles per hour, maybe as high as 60 miles per hour, maybe even locally 70 miles per hour. Again, there is even a small risk this system could get named from looking at these raw values. Maybe not by the Met Office, but maybe by Ciaran or one of the Scandinavian Met Services. Perhaps, again, similar to what we saw with Storm Pia. It's one of those where we're going to see 60, 70 miles per hour, kind of on the cusp of naming for the Met Office, but in the end got named by a different Met Service. And then further northwards, we've got another wind warning issued for Scotland for strong winds from midday until 3 a.m. on Christmas Day. Again, 50 miles per hour quite widely, maybe 60 to 70 miles per hour. Again, high impact, low likelihood. And this warning for northeast England, again, relatively high impact, low likelihood. And then if we look at Christmas Day, we've still got this wind warning issued. Again, could see further warnings issued for Christmas Day. But at this stage, it's a little bit too far away for seeing warnings issued. And of course, we'll have a look at the UKV now to see if there are any prospects for disruptive weather over Christmas Day. Now, if you look at the latest conditions, you can see through this evening that snowfall continues in northern eastern Scotland. But as we enter the early hours, the snow starts to become more confined to the higher ground. Rainfall continues to pour in, and it mostly turns to rain for tomorrow. And then we start to see more moisture gets pushed in as the cold front starts to sweep in, and that gives pretty much all rain for Scotland, but then it really starts to accumulate. This is where we could see 100 millimetres. So very unsettled through northern and western areas through Saturday afternoon. Further south and east was pretty dry, but pretty cloudy. Heavy rain moves in for all through Saturday night into Sunday, and for much of Sunday, it's actually going to be a very gloomy with rain moving in. So Christmas Day going to be quite a gloomy but mild picture with flat westerly winds, maybe some sunshine further northwards, but heavier showers. Further southwards, lots of gloom and areas of light to even moderate rain there for South Wales and southwest England. Into Christmas Day, it is not looking particularly great. Heavy rain is moving in for much of England and Wales. You'll be lucky to escape without seeing at least a few hours of wet weather there. And further northwards, cold air is moving in. The cold air we thought that could sink southwards, but it is just lingering off the coast of Scotland. Moves in for Christmas Day, and an area of precipitation bumps into that cold air. We actually do see an area of pretty heavy snow, so it could be quite a disruptive white Christmas for some areas of central, northern and eastern Scotland. Keep a very close eye on that. Again, most disruptive will be over the higher ground, probably, or at least hopefully not affecting too many people, but nevertheless could see quite a lot of snow there in some areas. As we progress through the rest of Christmas Day in towards Boxing Day, colder air does try to filter in, especially for northern areas. Could see a few wintry showers there into Boxing Day, but elsewhere still a relatively gloomy picture, but should be pretty dry. And then as we head into the 27th, we see more heavy rain move in for southern areas. Could even see some snow for North Wales and northern England over the higher ground as that cold air makes a little bit more progress further southwards. But for most, it is raining pretty heavily through Boxing Day night in towards the 27th. Now, if you look at the wind gusts, of course, we've got warnings issued over the coming days. Again, it doesn't look like as severe as Storm Pia we saw yesterday, but still could be very gusty, 50, 60, as I said, 70 miles per hour. Can see through this evening, we're looking at 50, 60 miles per hour, especially for that weather front across Scotland. And then as we head through Saturday, we could see those winds pick up further, 50, 60, and then into Christmas Eve, even 70 or even maybe even 80 miles per hour just off the coast of northern and eastern Scotland there through Christmas Eve in towards Christmas Day. So it could be really quite stormy there, especially for northern areas. And then through Christmas Day into Boxing Day will be up and down winds. Mostly though should be relatively unsettled with periods of stiller conditions, but it shouldn't be too stormy beyond sort of the early hours of Christmas Day. Now, if you look at the max temperatures, it's going to be pretty mild. You can see through this evening, cold across Scotland, down towards freezing, but elsewhere, 8 to 10 degrees. As we head into the 23rd, into Saturday, still around 9 to 11 degrees, still cold across north and eastern Scotland, but getting pushed away now. Into Saturday evening, into Sunday, into Christmas Eve, look at that 2 a.m. widely double digits, incredibly mild for Christmas Eve. And you can see into even Christmas Eve afternoon, 13, 14 degrees. So it's going to feel like it's autumn or spring, not early winter. As we progress into Christmas Day, cold air does filter in, and for most it's going to be chillier, but for central, southern and eastern England, still 10 to 13 degrees elsewhere, though much more seasonal, down to freezing in Scotland or mid to high single digits elsewhere. And then into Boxing Day, it will be much colder, fresher feel for all in the morning. Could see a frost quite widely in the north before the afternoon, more seasonable around 4 to 7 degrees. So much more seasonable Boxing Day there. But the milder area is pushing back in, and most likely for the 27th, it will be mild once again in the south. But if you do have a look at the longer range, of course, there is prospects for more sustained colder weather. It doesn't look anything too severe at this stage, but definitely does look relatively below average from most operational runs and from a lot of the ensembles now. You can see if we progress over the coming days, it does look pretty flat westerly. But as we head to the last few days of December, we do start to see the jet stream nudge further southwards, and you see the blues are nowhere near as sort of caught together as they are at the moment. You can see all the blues are very close together, showing a very strong, coherent tropospheric polar vortex. But as we head towards the latter part of December, we see more brief ridges and areas of high pressure to our north, which will allow the jet stream to nudge southwards, allowing cooler air to flow towards the UK. And this will mean there probably will be some more transient, perhaps even major snow events for northern England and Scotland. Further southwards doesn't look particularly likely at this stage. But as we progress beyond that, we do see more ridges, and even here into the early part of January, we even see a blocking area of high pressure develop over Iceland, and actually starts to pull in northerly and easterly winds into the first full week of January, turning us actually pretty cold and chilly there. Again, nothing crazy. You can see the upper air temperatures are hovering around the -5 point, so it will be touch and go for snow, but definitely would be below average, definitely would feel pretty chilly, and if that wind would be slightly stronger and a slightly stronger flow, we could tap into this very cold air across Scandinavia towards Greenland and Svalbard, but because the flow is pretty slack, the area of high pressure isn't too strong. The winds are not strong at all, so the air masses aren't moving around all too much. So it would be pretty sustained cold, but it wouldn't be anything too crazy, and it would be, as I said, touch and go for snow further southwards. But definitely does look like it was going to turn below average, pretty chilly by the end of the year at the earliest, but most likely into the first couple of days of 2024. Again, it is 10 days away from this sort of pattern sort of coming locked in, so I would be very sceptical of it, but we are seeing consistency, so that's why I'm giving it a little bit more validity to it at this stage. If we do have a look at the GM, see how that does compare. Again, westerly winds continue to come in off the Atlantic. The jet stream starts to get pushed further southwards, and you can see in the final days of December, we do see high pressure build to our north and east. Bit of Scandinavian high trying to get going there, but really doesn't do much. And actually by day 10, we're in more of a flat westerly. But as I said, the jet stream is pushed further southwards, so it means cooler air is involved in general a little bit more often than not. So it will mean it will generally be more towards average or below average. But the GM here still not quite as cold as the GFS. But as I said, it is at day 10, so we are going to see quite a lot of oscillations. But it is the similar sort of pattern with more high pressure building to our north, perhaps dropping that jet stream further southwards, and if proper area of high pressure gets going, then perhaps easterly or northerly winds looks possible, like we saw on the GFS. Now, the latest eastern BOF hasn't fully come out yet, so we'll have a look at the midnight run. And you can see, again, westerly winds over the coming days, over the Christmas period, pretty stormy perhaps. And then we actually even see a high-pressure system start to develop for the 28th here, with even easterly winds starting to push in. It probably would only be cold and potentially wintry for Scotland and northern England, if you can see the upper air temperatures really quite cold here by the 28th, 29th. But even right towards the end of the round, the first couple of days of January, we do see generally pretty far below average upper air temperatures dominating much of the United Kingdom through the 30th, 31st, even into the 1st here. Yes, it does look like that westerly flow will break through, but regardless, it does look like it for a time. It will go colder and below average. So you can see from most of the runs here, we are seeing some sort of colder trends. They're not really too coherent. They're not all showing the exact same pattern, but all showing that the tropospheric polar vortex, that sort of dominant westerly flow, is going to break up a bit more. See a bit more amplification of the jet stream, allowing more Atlantic ridges and perhaps blocking areas of high pressure to start to get going. And it could, as I said, bring a risk of below average temperatures or even pretty cold, wintry conditions into the new year. Now, we can see this from the latest Ensemble, so if you do refresh this as it is just updating, you can see it is dropping to average or below average in the longer term. It's actually got a slightly warmer correction for this midday run, but if we go back to the 6 o'clock run, you can see it is pretty far below average. So actually has warmed up slightly on the this latest update, but it is still generally below average. And remember, this is for London, so it is pretty far southwards. If we look, for example, at Glasgow, further northwards, you can see it is slightly below average still, but many more of those runs down to -5 or cooler, so closer to the sort of cold pool of air. So it definitely looks like it's going to be back down towards average, if not below average, to end December and start January. And this time of year, when the air is at its coldest, when our north and the east, sort of Scandinavia, the North Pole, is getting towards the coldest for the time when these areas are getting towards sort of the coldest they get, then it does mean that even slightly below average temperatures coming in does give the risk of more wintriness, even further southwards at times. So we have to keep a very close eye on it, but you can see definitely a cooling trend. But at this stage, no crazy signal of anything majorly cold, just some hints from some of the runs, and we'll just have to keep a very close eye on it. Just to finish, if we look at the latest ECMWF, the midnight run, again trending below average for the last few days of December into early January, but actually trending slightly above average around the 3rd, 4th and 5th. So slightly different in the real extended range, but in the sort of medium to longer range, around that sort of day 7 to day sort of 12 point, it is in agreement with what the operational runs are showing and what the ensembles from the GFS were showing as well. So over the next sort of 5 days, it's looking pretty mild for everywhere apart from sort of Scotland, really. Yes, there could be a bit of frost around Boxing Day, slightly chillier, but for most it is pretty mild, pretty unsettled and pretty stormy, with very strong winds coming for northern areas over the coming days, especially through Christmas Eve into the early hours of Christmas Day. So if you are travelling, make sure you keep an eye on those weather warnings, as it could be pretty disruptive indeed. Of course, Storm Pia did bring down a lot of trees in places and did bring general disruption. Of course, I saw, I think on Thursday, that London Euston had all their trains cancelled again. I don't know if that was directly from Storm Pia. But it happened exactly, overhead wires got damaged exactly at the time those strongest winds were coming in. So things like that could occur. So it is best to keep an eye on the warnings and on the conditions, of course, and I'll keep you updated as well over the next couple of days as we lead up towards Christmas. So anyway, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you again for another video soon.